Hi there, I'm Robert Scragg. I'm the author of the Porter and Styles crime thriller series, the latest of which, End of the Line, is out now. And I'm going to give you a bit of a sneak peek into what it's all about. So the book opens in an old, disused magistrate's court with a guy called Ross Henderson, who is a vlogger, quite an influential vlogger. And he's streaming a live event to his followers. Purpose of which is he's rallying his supporters against the growing wave of what he sees as support for the far right. And he's chosen what he thinks is the perfect location to preach to them about justice and what's wrong with the country and those who are running it. What he doesn't know is that he's also chosen the stage that he's going to die on, and that his followers have got front row seats to his murder. It's as tough and complicated a case as Jake Porter and Nick Styles have ever had. London was already at boiling point from everything that's been going on, and this could be the trigger that pushes some of them over the edge. It's made even more tricky by the fact that Porter finally has a lead on the hit and run incident which killed his wife a few years ago. And what I'm going to do now is read you a quick chunk from near the start to give you a bit of a feel for the jam that they're in. Anyone who reads either this one or any others in the series, I'd love to hear what you think. Drop me a line on any of the usual platforms, Twitter, Amazon, Instagram, or through my website. And any of you who are kind enough and that way inclined to leave a review, good, bad, or ugly, I'd love to see those too on Amazon. So without further ado, I'm going to dive straight in and give you a bit of a feel for what it's all about. The sun had just dipped below the skyline as they pulled up on Blackheath Road. The old courthouse was a faded, dirtied version of its earlier 20th century classical glory, flanked on either side by what looked like townhouses. The entrance, a slate grey dome that resembled a squashed-down copper's helmet. Up on the roof, front and centre, a now bare flagpole, candle on top of an out-of-date cake. A cordon had been set up across the front of the entire building. Twin double doors either side of the main entrance and walkways up to them taped off like mini boxing rings. One lane of the road outside was closed off too. One officer allowing traffic from either direction to alternate. A gallery of frustrated faces peered out as Porter walked past. Every single one of them oblivious to the carnage carried out a stone's throw from where their engines idled. Across the road, a growing gaggle of press shuffled restlessly in a quick-fit car park. Never ceased to amaze Porter how quickly they sniffed out a story. One familiar face amongst them already, Amy Fitzwilliam from Sky News. A hungry up-and-comer who he hadn't had the best of experiences with so far. She was good at her job. Too good. She buzzed around the edges of his last big case, a missing 7-year-old and a trove of bodies dug up in a London park. It caused him no end of bother, breaking stories live at the scene, using information the police hadn't even released. He saw her clock him and looked away as he and Styles approached the edge of the cordon. "Detective Porter?" He recognised her voice, glancing over even as he told himself not to react. "Detective Porter, is it true that this is the location that Storm Clouds was broadcasting from? Are the men who attacked him still inside? Are they in custody?" He gave her half a smile, nothing more, and turned his attention to the officer controlling access to the scene. Pointless exercise, hurling questions like that, spitting them out like an involuntary tic. Did any of them honestly expect him to just stroll over and spill his guts and share everything they had? Not that they had much at the minute. He and Styles signed in, walked into the lobby and suited up in a disposable Tyvek all-in-one coverall. The lobby floor was a work of art, thousands of tiny mosaic tiles, enough to make his head hurt with the thought of how long it would have taken to lay. The wood panelling on the walls was identical to that he'd seen in the courtroom broadcast. They made their way through a series of short corridors, entering the courtroom from the side. Porter recognised the public gallery that the first masked man had stood in, off to his left. This meant that the magistrate's chair that the poor bugger had been tied in was behind the door to the right. Even before he stepped through, the smell was unmistakable, a coppery taint in the air, thick, soupy, like an invisible smog. He followed Styles through the door, his view of the chair blocked by a pair of similarly suited figures with their backs to them. Porter took a moment to survey the rest of the room. A bizarre sense of déjà vu washed over him. To have never set foot in here until now, but to have watched such a horrific sequence unfold in this room, gave it a surreal, familiar quality. The phone that must have filmed every gory moment of it still sat clamped in a tripod on a table bang in the centre of the room. "Ah, I see you two finally decided to show up." Porter looked over at the voice, recognising his superintendent, Roger Milburn, and his holier-than-thou tone that always sounded like he was speaking to an audience. Probably used it even when he was at home alone with his wife. Porter opened his mouth to make an excuse as to where he'd been, but Milburn just waved him over. Come on, clock's ticking, he said, making no effort to hide his impatience. Porter worked his way around to the left, moving across a series of transparent, raised anti-contamination stepping plates so as not to smudge blood spatter that decorated the floor. Didn't need a scene of crime officer to work out who all of it came from, thanks to the live broadcast. Always a chance that one of the offenders had nicked themselves, though. It paid to be thorough. The sight he got when he was past Milburn's shoulder was every bit as bad as he feared. The headless body, still tethered at the wrists to the chair by cable ties, was slumped forwards 10 degrees or so at the waist. Stains of all sizes and shapes blotted jeans and t-shirt like one big Rorschach test, darker now, drying from a red to a rusty brown. Porter made a conscious effort not to stare at the neck, stomach on spin cycle. Behind him, he heard Styles breathing loudly through his mouth. Nice to see you again, Jake. The figure next to Milburn spoke, and Porter recognised the voice and smiled. Cam Qureshi was one of the best they had when it came to forensics. He'd made a career plucking needles from haystacks. If there was anything to find in all this mess, he was the man Porter would want searching for it. Hey, Cam, how you doing? Better than our friend here, Cam said, cocking a thumb towards the body. I was just telling the super that solving a murder is going to be the least of our worries. What's that supposed to mean? Porter asked, puzzled. What he means, Porter, is that our victim here was more popular than Ed bloody Sheeran. I wouldn't say that, sir. Sheeran's got 30 million plus. What? Never mind that, Qureshi. The chap has, or had, millions of followers online. Seems he spent most of his time whipping them up against people like the EWP. Porter wasn't massively political, but he had picked up enough about the English Welfare Party in the news to know they were the Marmite of English politics. They'd snatched the right-wing baton from UKIP, and from what Porter could see, took every opportunity to bellow out the rallying cry of Britain for the British, or a variation on the theme. Bad enough the EWP are gaining traction by hitching the wagon to the Brexit train, Milburn continued. But that video is a right-winger's wet dream. They'll stuff that down the throat of anyone they can in the hope of dragging a few more into their camp. Nick says we're still waiting for someone to stick their hand up and claim it, sir. Strictly speaking, yes, but Cam here thinks he's got us a step ahead. How so? Porter asked, looking back at Cam. If you watch the footage back, you can see they've all got some kind of badge on their suits. I'll take your word for it, Cam, said Porter, no desire to watch that back any more than was absolutely necessary. Qureshi continued. I watched the footage back a few times and I took a screenshot. It's a bit blurry, but it's enough to get an idea. I'll show you the picture when we get out of these posh frocks, he said, patting his paper-thin suit. But for now, we're looking at a crescent moon with a single star off to one side. Why do I get the feeling that should mean something to me? Nick Styles asked. Because it should, Porter said. Couldn't tell you if it has a particular name, but those symbols are linked to Islam. That plus the main fella on the video shouting Allahu Akbar was a bit of a clue. Gold star for Porter. Cam nodded his approval to the first point. Jesus, said Styles, the EWP will lap that up. His eyes flitted between the body and the blood on the floor. Indeed they will, Sergeant, which is exactly why we need to make sure we're on point when it comes to managing the information flow on this one, said Milburn. Speaking of which, I need you to head back and prep a statement. Don't leave until you've spoken with the chap from counter-terrorism. Porter, call me right after that. The guy sending someone called Taylor. True to form, Milburn turned on his heel and left them to it. Never want to stand on ceremony or worry about social niceties like hello or goodbye. Well, what a little ray of sunshine our illustrious leader manages to bring to proceedings, Porter muttered once Milburn was out of earshot. What else have you got for us then, Cam? Cam didn't miss a beat. Well, I can give you an educated guess as to cause of death. And there we have it. So hope you enjoyed that. If you like what you hear, as I say, End of Line is out now, 4th in the series. All of the others are available too. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it, and look forward to hearing from you after you've read it. Cheers, bye.